everyone. I'm Ella from Students for Palestine here in Perth, and I'm also a member of Socialist Alternative as well. And I think I just wanted to start by, acknowledging the fact that it's been a year of genocide in Gaza, now, a brutal invasion of Lebanon by Israel. And yet, it's been really important, I think, to see sustained mass demonstrations across the world. One of the biggest anti-war movements I think we've seen in many, many years across the world for Palestine. And Jeremy Corbyn mentioned that there was a rally this weekend in London, and I saw in the news that it had 300,000 people at it, which is just phenomenal, I think. And also today in Sydney and Melbourne, I heard reports that there's been tens of thousands of people in the streets, and yesterday in Perth we had about 1,000. And I think that's really significant considering the absolutely racist and slanderous campaign by the media, by the politicians, by the police to paint the pro-Palestine movement, especially the last week, as violent and as causing division and hatred and disrupting social cohesion, when those forces are the ones supporting all of Israel's actions and have said they unequivocally stand with Israel in the context of their aggression of bombing Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and the wider Middle East. So I think it's been really, really important, and I think that's one of the roles that Students for Palestine has wanted to play over the past year, is trying to inspire more students and young people to be more actively involved in the pro-Palestine movement in an ongoing way as well, and building a movement into the future of being anti-imperialist, anti-war, anti-America, all of that kind of stuff. So I think the encampments were a really important development in the pro-Palestine movement. Obviously, they were sparked by the really brave students in America at Columbia University who took a stand against their university's complicity in connections to pro-Israeli weapons companies. And it kind of spread all across the world. In Australia, Students for Palestine initially set one up at Sydney University, and then we set them up basically all across the country. So I was at Curtin, and one of the key people involved in leading that. And I think it's been important to call out our university's complicity, because as this conference has, I guess, talked about, the universities across Australia are playing a really key, pivotal role in the militarisation of this country, of entrenching our alliance with America, and funneling students into, kind of engineering, like science, like fields to help to build like nuclear technology, and, entrenching their connections to weapons companies. So at Curtin, they're entrenching their connections to Lockheed Martin, Boeing Defence, BAE Systems. Curtin's part of the AUKUS Workforce Alliance, which I think Erin talked more about yesterday. It's really important that we stand against this increasing encroachment of the military, the defence force in our universities, and also actually the universities playing a role in building up the social licence for AUKUS in international relations departments and humanities departments. It's not just engineering. I think it's all aspects of the university. They're trying to promote, the military essentially and sell it to students. So I think it's been really important that the encampments started a big global national campaign to get our universities to cut all connections to weapons companies, and also cut connections to Israel in general. And I think the encampments were great, not just because we were kind of occupying space at the universities, but we organised some of the biggest demonstrations on campuses in years. Like at Curtin, we had rallies of 400 people, which is actually really, really significant for a campus like Curtin to mobilise 400 people almost for 3 weeks in different protests. We organised hundreds of students, some students who were going to protest for the first time in their lives, which I think is important. It's about this moment is drawing more people in to activism. And I think actually building up social pressure in a grassroots way, especially amongst young people, it's always been a really important part of impacting society, impacting politics, impacting the media. I think one example of that, practical example of that, was Fatima Payman. She talked a lot about how the encampments is what made her really rethink what she was doing in the Labor Party. And then she visited the Curtin encampment. We were not that nice to her, to be honest. We were like, well, if you actually stand for Palestine, you'll take a stand against the party you're in. You'll vote against them in Parliament. Will you do that? We asked her. And then the next day she did a press conference where she said it's a genocide, and she said from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And then a few weeks later, she resigned and was pushed out and basically exiled from, by the Albanese. So I think that was important. It's about putting pressure on wider society, and that can have an impact on politics in a practical way as well. So I think that was important. And then another development in the pro-Palestine movement has been big student general meetings that Students for Palestine has organised across the country, and these have been like mass meetings of students to vote, to get students to vote, come together to vote for the universities to cut ties to Israel. So it started at the University of Queensland, where about 1,500 students went to this mass student general meeting to vote on that, had a big massive protest, and then that's been replicated at Sydney Uni. Last week at UWA, there was a really massive one of 300 students, and we're doing one at Curtin this week. So I think it's been really important, and I think students have always, shown the way in terms of this kind of stuff. The anti-Vietnam War movement, students were a really pivotal part of promoting the kind of further radicalisation and also like massification of that movement. So just now to talk about the response of the institutions, because I think that's what I was meant to talk about, is we've seen an intense crackdown by the universities, particularly after the encampments. They have felt confident to go on the offensive. So, for example, me and Erin at Curtin received emails threatening us with discipline if we kept using the slogan "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." And many of our members at Curtin are also now facing discipline simply for filming cleaners who are taking down Palestine posters calmly, and they're facing potential discipline for that. And then all across the country, this is being replicated. People going through kangaroo courts, totally unfair hearings, etc. And I think it's important to recognise a lot of this stuff is just attacking us for really bread and butter basic political rights. So postering, leafleting, having conversations, and that's been deemed as harassment or causing an unsafe environment. Because we're standing against something that the universities support, which is Israel. They want to shield Israel, an ethno-state, shield an apartheid ethno-state from any criticism, because the people in power, the government, all of these institutions, they support this country. They support imperialism. They're supporting the war drive. So, of course, they want to try to make us seem like the bad guys. And I think we're seeing that mostly right now with the inquiry into anti-Semitism on university campuses, which I don't think is at all about caring about anti-Semitism. It's about attacking people who are standing against a genocidal regime. That's what it's about. And so I think it's completely cynical. The people who are appointed to head this inquiry are ardent supporters of the Israeli state. They do not care about actually fighting racism, which we're the movement who stands against racism, against division, who want to see freedom and justice for all in historic Palestine, and we are seen as the one causing division. And that's what this inquiry is about. It's about trying to silence and repress basic rights of students, particularly, it's actually crazy, in the context of 40,000 deaths, 2,000 deaths in 2 weeks in Lebanon, this is the response from the government, and we are the ones who are facing intense repression. It's just crazy. I think it's important to hold our ground, to not be cowed in the face of this horrendous onslaught, not just for students, but around the country. One other thing I just wanted to mention quickly before I wrap up is me and Erin put in a Freedom of Information request into Curtin University to see all of their correspondences about us, and it's very scary. They basically monitor every single thing we do. They are constantly on our social media, screenshotting everything that is in the media about us. They're onto that, which shows that we are having an impact on them. They are worried that we are damaging their reputation. They also really kind of scarily, one day I think me and my partner were at Curtin just studying on a weekend, and they were like, "Oh, a lot of Students for Palestine members are on campus today. I wonder what's going on." It's we're just there, doing stuff. So they are watching us, watching what we're doing, and I think that shows that it is very invasive, and they have AI. They can track our faces. This is what the universities are becoming. They're becoming extremely repressive places, and I think that's why it's been important to just stand against that tide, continue to do what we're doing, continue to leaflet, put up posters, and establish that it should be a basic precedent, a basic thing to do political activism on campuses. That's been a basic thing since the 1960s and 70s. How else are students meant to take a stand if we're not even allowed to do such basic things, especially in the context of being against a genocide, being against apartheid? So yeah, thanks for having me. And I think, what we all need to keep doing is building a movement for Palestine, not give up, especially after a year. It's only getting worse. And the Australian government's response is only getting worse and more severe. So yeah, been great to be here. Thank you.